Christina.
And this is the video that we promised a long time ago. It's the video on Tatemae versus Honne and Uchi versus Soto. And we're gonna do our best explaining this here, but just in case that we don't do a terribly good job, we're gonna have a link to the website that taught us all about it at the end of the video, because these are complex concepts to explain in, you know, just a however many minute video this ends up being, and so, you know, I would definitely check out the website for further information, especially if you don't understand it from our video, because you very well could not, because
it's quite confusing. Sorry guys, I can't really explain this as well as Bailey, so I'm just gonna let Bailey take over.
Sounds good. This may not necessarily be true of every Japanese person, of course, because nothing is absolutely true of you know, every certain kind of person of anything, you know? Stereotypes aren't necessarily true. But this is very well observed concepts of Japanese culture that have been recorded by anthropologists and by numerous people, and they can be hard for American people and foreigners in general to realize on their own, but with some explanation a lot makes sense. So first we're going to go into Tatemae versus Honne. And Tatemae is basically how you act in front of others. It's especially how you act in front of people that you don't know very well or that you're trying to be very polite to, such as a guest often. And basically, if you're Japanese, you display your tatemae by like being extra kind to them, trying to make everything just flow nicely, like giving them the nice this, the nice that, and giving them really nice food, taking them places, you know. And whereas if there's any problems that occur, you do not let that show. You don't confront them about anything. You don't. Direct confrontation is an absolute no. But you just try to make everything seem really happy and nice and stuff like that. And of course, every culture really kind of has this on some level. You know, I mean, if somebody says to you, "How are you doing?" you might say, "Oh, I'm doing great," even if, you know, maybe you're having a bad day. Because maybe you don't know that person so well and you're not about to say, "Oh, I'm having a terrible day, my goldfish died, I failed the test, blah 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 blah," you know. So every culture has that to some degree, but some just have that more than others, and the Japanese culture very well could have that more than any other culture does. Especially more than American culture does. The Japanese culture is also unique in that direct confrontation is very, very much frowned upon. If you can solve a problem in any other way besides direct confrontation, they will solve it in that way. So that's Tatemae. Honne is what you actually feel inside. You know, what you're actually your actual feelings about something. Oh yes, very nice. Thank you, Christina.
You're very welcome.
Wow. So maybe, like, you know, to have a very simple example, perhaps say somebody comes out and they're all like, "Oh, how does this top look on me?" And that top looks pretty hideous on them. But you don't want to hurt their feelings, so you say, "Oh, that top looks great." So saying that top looks great is your tatemae. Your honne is that top looks pretty horrible. But you're not going to say that because you don't want to make them uncomfortable. So that's basically Tatemae versus Honne in the most simple explanation that I can give. So the significance here is that when Japanese people have guests, they are very careful to be extra polite and show only their tatemae behavior. You know, that's when this sort of behavior becomes even more exemplified. It becomes even more extreme, if you will. They often give the guest amazing food, exclude them from chores, etc. All the while trying to hide that they're trying so hard. You know, they don't want you to think that things like this don't just happen, that they're making a special fuss for you. This is alright, normally, because Japanese guests know that the Japanese hosts are doing this, because most Japanese guests have played at some point the part of a Japanese host. They know what it's like to be a Japanese host, and they know how their hosts are feeling and how they should be acting in such a way to give their hosts the least amount of trouble that they possibly can. If there is a problem, as I said before, the Japanese will communicate very subtly, perhaps through suggestions. These suggestions might seem totally harmless, like what the example given on this website that we learned about this from was Japanese families usually take baths in the evening. It's kind of a communal thing. Well, not quite. They take turns in the bath, and so taking showers in the morning like many Americans do is not considered normal. And it can really be a hassle. It can raise terrible water bills, you know, you just don't want to inconvenience them that way. So in the example given on the website, a Japanese family might say to you, "Oh, we take baths in the evening. Would you like to try a bath in the evening?" They're not just trying to invite you to take a bath in the evening, they're trying to get you to take a bath in the evening all the time because they don't want you taking showers in the morning. Now, subtle suggestions like this may be really hard to catch, and that can be quite scary. So you have to be very, very observant, and you have to pay attention to what the Japanese people do and to imitate that as much as possible. Now, uchi versus soto is the next concept we're going to cover, and it's very much related to tatemae versus honne. Uchi is your in-group. You know, these are the people who are maybe your group of friends, or your family definitely, or your coworkers. And you speak less formally to these people often. This is not always true. For example, if it's your family, you might want to pay more respect to your mother, but perhaps you would speak informally to your brother. Or if it's your coworkers, you would speak more formally to your boss. However, you wouldn't speak quite as formally to your coworkers. Unless that is not true if you are in front of somebody who is not in your uchi. In that case, you might speak even less formally to the people who are in your uchi in order to emphasize that they are in your uchi. It's a very complicated thing. But anyway, so this uchi group is very important. You function as a group. Your primary responsibility is not to yourself, but to your group. And you make decisions as a group. If one person in that group makes the decision that, oh, how about we go to the movies, then everybody should go to the movies. It's your responsibility to go to the movies. If you're not there, you failed to become a part of your group, and that's not okay. Soto is the opposite of uchi. These are the people you don't know well. Not necessarily strangers. It's just somebody that you really just don't know. And they're the people outside of your group. You are polite to them to the point of excess, and you speak formally to them often. That's who you definitely display your tatemae behavior towards. You'd never display your honne to them. People who are uchi are often allowed in different parts of the house in families. So, for example, if you have a guest who's a very close friend, and maybe they're over all the time, you take them into some parts of the house, like maybe the kitchen. The kitchen is a place that's usually reserved for only very close people. However, if it's a very important, distinguished person, one of the examples given was a professor that you don't really know, then you would never let them into your kitchen. You would only let them into like this tatami mat room often. That's where you'd let them stay. And then if they were interacting, you'd keep them in the living room, not even in the dining room. And you certainly would never let them into your bedrooms. And so they're not big on giving house tours there. So the website that we got most of our information from this time around is called At Home in Japan. And I'm sure you can just Google that, put quotations around it. And it says it's by Jane Bachnik. I'm not quite sure if that's how you say it, but it's Jane, Bachnik. And all credits to her. She is amazing for coming up with this, because otherwise we would not have had quite a good experience in Japan when we go. So I'm very glad that we found this. I most definitely recommend checking out that site, because it definitely goes far more in depth than we did. And it gives far more examples, which are very helpful. And it talks about how you can go from the Soto group, which is the outside group, to the Uchi group, which is the inside group, which is what you need to do as a responsible foreign exchange student, because you're staying with these people for a very long time. And if you remain, seen as a guest inside their home, then you're going to be a burden for them for the next school year. It's going to be 9 months or so. And that would be horrible because you wouldn't even realize that you're being a burden to them. So you need to join their in-group so that you can really become a true part of their family and help participate in regular activities and chores and become an active and helpful part of their family. So we could make a video about that if you'd like. It still would not be as good as the website. So if you would like us to make that video, please let us know. We will. We'll do our best. But this video would be too long if we did include that one. And so I would definitely recommend just checking out that site. Anyway, so that's about it for today, I think.
That's it.
Alright, so this is Bailey and Christina signing off.
See you guys.